Let's go ahead and begin as other people continue to log in and join us today. This is the 20th session in the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. We're glad to have you join us for this University of Missouri Extension program. Our guest presenter today is Sarah Massengale. Now, you may remember that Sarah presented once before, and she had that fantastic family photo at her graduation with her son crying. I will forever remember that picture, but she had a great presentation last time, and I'm looking forward to what she has to say today. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on Sarah as a reminder. She's been with University of Missouri Extension for almost 13 years. She is a county engagement specialist in community economic development. She is headquartered in Salem, Missouri, which is Dent County. She has an interesting background, a lot of work in sort of environmental studies and certainly food systems that she's very familiar with. In fact, she has a publication that she has written called Linking Small Farms to Communities with Local Food. I thought that was an interesting case study that she had done. Sarah speaks French, I learned today, but she's also very experienced in this area of leadership, and that's what we get to tap into today. Her bachelor's degree is from Knox College in Illinois. Her master's is in urban planning and regional planning from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and her doctorate is in rural sociology from the University of Missouri, Columbia. Sarah, thank you for being our presenter today on the topic of teachability.
Thanks, David, and thanks for that great introduction. And then, hearing that, look at this quote here: the more you read, the more things you will know, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. I have a kind of random history, right? So I've been able to go a lot of places with all those different topics and places of learning. So I guess that is something really interesting. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to start out, our topic today is teachability. And what I always think of when I think about teachability is things like lifelong learning, open-mindedness, humility, experience, and just being open to lots of things, being willing to learn and the willingness to change. I saw that as a kind of a way to measure your teachability, is the willingness to learn times the willingness to change. So I thought that was really interesting. And this quote, right, is perfect timing. We have all these graduations, even though they're virtual or different ways of celebrating. But this quote by Dr. Seuss ends up on a lot of graduation cards. Maggie, I think, mentioned that her son's room had this when he was growing up. And so I think that this is a way to help encourage and think about our graduates, to help encourage them to keep learning and moving on, even though they've accomplished something. So I wanted to start out by doing a quick poll. David, if you could pull that up for us, to get a sense of where we feel we are in terms of our own teachability. So here are the options. What is your mindset about lifelong learning? Curiosity killed the cat. I do what is required. I learn something new every day. I'm chugging along on my own personal development plan, or I'm expecting a call from Jeopardy any day now. These polls are really fun. It's fun to watch all the answers coming in. So far we're leading with I learn something new every day. 2 people are ready for their Jeopardy call.
Oh, that is not me. I did not cast that vote.
Okay. So, I wanted us to think through, it looks like, yep, I learn something new every day. That's fantastic. And that's, the thing we should really keep in mind, is that that's what teachability is about, is being open to new things and learning. Oops, okay, so I think we'll close the poll. Oops, we'll do that one in a minute. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. So David mentioned, or we were talking when this started, that I have done a lot of work with conservation and environmental education. And I wanted to talk about a family that I think has been a really good example of teachability. And the photo got a little blurry, I see, when I made it bigger, but this is the Aldo Leopold family. And Aldo is the one on the top, the back left. And he was a professor of wildlife ecology at the University of Wisconsin. And he's known for the book, A Sand County Almanac, where he talked about a land ethic, which was a way to think about living in the world, living on the land, respecting the land and people in our communities. Leopold died in 1948, but he and his wife, Estella, who's the woman sitting next to him, raised 5 children, and all of those children went on to receive doctorate degrees in a scientific field. And they were internationally recognized scientists on a range of environmental issues. They've received awards and recognition. Trisha's reading A Sand County Almanac right now. It's one of my favorite books. But so they've all received international awards. They were in demand as keynote speakers at national and international conferences. And so they're well respected and learned people, right? So what I wanted to share about that, though, is that I had the chance to work at the Leopold Foundation, which is an educational center in Wisconsin, right after I graduated from my bachelor's degree. So I was about 23. I had a degree, but no experience. But I got to meet and spend time with Leopold's oldest daughter, Nina Leopold Bradley, who when I met her was about 87. But she was still learning and researching and working to promote continued education about the environment to a new generation of students. I was invited to a party one time while I was living there that was Nina and 3 of her siblings, who were all from in their 70s to 90s at that point. And like I mentioned, they were all famous people. It was really intimidating to go to this party. But what I remember, I don't remember specifics of our conversations, but I remember was this great opportunity for discussions and engagement. Even they all asked, what I was interested in. They asked for my opinions on the issues of the time. And we had great discussions and debates, and they were all, you could just sense this willingness to learn and continue learning, and that they've encouraged that with other people. So it was just such a fascinating evening. And what I came away with was this awe of how teachable each of those family members were, and that they authentically listened and discussed with everyone at that party. They were still wanting to learn and grow themselves. Nina, she was the one on the bottom left there. She was she died in 2011 in about 93, I think. But she would go out every day and snowshoe or ski, and she kept really detailed data about the birds that came to her bird feeders and when plants would bloom. And so they used that data that she collected daily to write a scientific article about climate change and how that was affecting birds and animals and plants in southern Wisconsin. And so I just thought that was such an interesting thing, in that teachability character that carried through that entire family, and that they also shared and were willing to spread through their education center and their own just love of learning. But it really started, I think, with Aldo, the father, and Estella, the mother's willingness to learn and teach that to their children. So Leopold wrote this famous book, Sand County Almanac, and has this land ethic. And so, but throughout his writings, and for those that have read the book, you'll remember he says things like words like humility, paying attention, having a sense of wonder. And even in his life's work, this land ethic, he wrote, "Nothing as important as an ethic is ever written. It evolves in the minds of a thinking community." So he knew that even though he was writing this and it was based on his life's journey and experience, that people would be thinking about it and adapting it and learning and adding more to it. And I just thought that's a really interesting thing to consider about how that sense of teachability and being willing and open to learn spread through this entire family, and how they've used that also to create this foundation and continue educating students long past when all those work and career. So this is one other quote from Leopold that I wanted to share, just as another example of how he seems such a teachable person. "The last word in ignorance is the man who says of an animal or plant, 'What good is it?' If the land mechanism as a whole is good, then every part is good, whether we understand it or not. To keep every cog and wheel is the first precaution of intelligent tinkering." And that was his whole sense in Sand County Almanac, was about thinking about how we explore and learn, and that we never really understand all of it, but that's the continued learning that we need to keep focusing on. Oops, there we go. Okay. So what do you think? Let's see. Let's read some of the comments. The Sand County Almanac is the Bible for master naturalists. Yes. It's a major resource. Yep, for classes. I read it for the first time in my undergraduate degree. And David wrote, teachability is not something we can develop from a single session or simple intention. It doesn't develop in spurts and starts. True teachability is a lifestyle, and it takes practice. That's for sure. And that's, I think, why that Leopold family is such a good example for me, is that it was the family and their long-term engagement and willingness to learn together as a family in their work and their personal lives, and that they've continued that long-term. So I liked this quote when I was looking up resources and inspiration. Curiosity, millions saw the apple fall, but Newton asked why. So I want to have a little discussion. Do you guys have examples of people who sort of inspire that willingness to learn, or that show good examples of being teachable? Have you had folks like the Leopolds for me, where it really kind of inspired me to stay open and keep learning?
If you do, hopefully a few folks will enter those in chat. I think a big part of being teachable is learning from failures. We oftentimes don't grow from having successes. We grow from having failures, and taking the time to learn from those. That's an important part of teachability. That's right. And Stacy mentioned her grandchildren. That is true, right? Our children and our grandchildren are always showing us new ways to learn and things that we should pay attention to. Sarah says her mother. Yep, our family members are some of the ones that help inspire that lifelong learning. And I also wanted to, just the, Mary says she's curious and asks why, lots. Yes, exactly, just like Newton. And that's what I thought was important about this quote. It's not just about wondering why, it's taking that next step and sort of following up and researching and learning more. Infinite research, and you cannot be involved and not be open to learn. That's right, Valerie. That's part of what I think is so great about being out in the outdoors. So we wanted to talk a little bit about Maxwell's book and his suggestions for being teachable and being a good leader who's open to learning. And so he starts out the book with the example of Charlie Chaplin. And so despite his great success, and he achieved the first $1 million contract in the movie industry, he continued to critique and review his work, look for feedback, and improve his practice. So he definitely didn't have destination disease, which is one of the things Maxwell cautions about, that once you achieve success or a degree or some level that you're hoping to get to, that shouldn't be the end. They should keep working. I always joke, people, once I got my doctorate and my PhD, and people would call me Dr. Massengale, in times where, especially when it was things where I had no idea, math, accounting, QuickBooks, David, that is not my thing. And so I remind them, I have a doctorate in rural sociology. So I have a very specialized knowledge in that, but definitely I'm still learning and still open, and there's still a lot of things I don't know. And so I always remind people about that the doctor doesn't mean anything about all the end insight. So, so let's pull up the second poll. And while we're doing that, I'll read a few more. Catherine says, lots of memories, one from a Girl Scout leader, opened the gate to exploring the outdoors. Yeah, that's great, and taught a lot of skills. Cynthia says her grandma, if you don't ask, you will never know. Bill said Dr. John Novak at Mizzou, who he did his master's work under. Yep, our teachers and mentors can be great people for helping to keep us learning and being teachable. Yeah. Oh, and Trisha, yep, tell the children the most important thing in life is to learn. Yes, great. And Stephanie, that's really important. As a teacher, I appreciated the C student who wanted to learn and know more above the A student who did not put in any effort. According to Maxwell, the A student needed to cure destination disease. That's right. Yes. Fantastic. So I wanted to ask a little bit about Charlie Chaplin. Does anyone know which quote is from him?
And yes, we have a few more votes coming in. I think we're pretty close. And so far, everybody's guessing mostly correct. It is, I have that priceless quality of being curious about life and things which keep up my enthusiasm. That was Charlie Chaplin. The others, though, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. That was John F. Kennedy. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And that's Nelson Mandela. And then it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. And that's John Wooden. That was the quote right in the beginning of our chapter there, the basketball coach. So yeah, I just thought some really interesting to think about as we move to the next slide here. Is about paying the price for success. So not taking shortcuts. If you can find a path with no obstacles, it probably doesn't lead anywhere. And Frank Clark was a politician who wrote books about the world wars. So the pay the price for success, if you remember in the Maxwell book, was about not taking shortcuts and not taking the easy route, but that you have to do the work and put in the work to get the success that you're looking for. Do you have an example of seeing a shortcut and either you took it and learned from that lesson, or that you didn't take it and you felt like that was the right choice to get the success that you were looking for? While you take a minute to comment, we'll also think about number 4, giving up your pride. So it means admitting that you don't know everything, which can be hard on our pride. So you have to let go of pride to be teachable. No one wants to admit any shortcuts right now, right? Believed the first review on Amazon. Not sure what that means, Valerie. You want to type a little more? Oh, I'm sorry, I gotcha. As a shortcut, believed the first review on Amazon. Amen, that is true, right? I did that with finding some of these quotes. I found one I thought was really good, and I thought, well, I better look up who said it and make sure I knew who it was. Well, the picture that was on the little photo image I was going to crop and put in this presentation definitely did not match the person that pulled up as that speaker. So I had to do a little extra research and ended up getting rid of that one. So, right, that would have been a good mistake to learn from, for sure. And so that leads us right into this making mistakes and learning from them. So you can see the cartoon there, right? So he trips and falls, but pops right back up. Ta-da. So it's all about perspective, right? And seeking the opportunity to learn from it, or changing your perspective about what happens and how you can turn it into a positive learning opportunity, right? So, so we all make mistakes, but good leaders learn from their mistakes and never make the same mistake twice. That was what Maxwell was really pointing out, is that good leaders shouldn't make the same mistake twice. They should take that lesson from that and move forward. So thinking about here, like how you react to your mistakes, do you own up to it and apologize or try to make it right? Do you see it as a learning opportunity, or are you defensive? And Maxwell recommends that we really take some time to think through how we react, you know, watching yourself when there's a problem, or asking for some perspective from your colleagues or your family about your reactions, and thinking through how you can change that the next time that something happens. Because there's always a next time, right? We're always making mistakes and learning. So, all right, so the last couple of ones I wanted to talk about was the try something new and always challenge yourself. And Maxwell talks about how doing something different challenges us mentally, physically, and emotionally, and change us for the better. So I share this photo. Sorry, when you get my presentations, a lot of times you get my family in them, right? Because I'm always learning and challenging myself with my family. And so I wanted to share this photo, though, because it's really good to have the importance, someone in your life who's helping you to break out of your box, think outside your comfort zone, try new things. And for me, my husband is one of those people. He is full of curiosity. He wants to know everything about everything, and he's always up for trying new things. And so this picture, he has always wanted to go to tree climbing school to be a certified tree climber. He's a forester with the Forest Service. And so he finally got the chance to go and take the training and learned all the safety steps. And the idea here is that you can climb a tree and then cut a limb that's really high up, so to avoid hitting a roof or something like that. And so he went and took the training, and then he's been challenging himself because now that we're working from home, he's using some of that time to practice the technique and keep going, because it's hard work to climb a tree. And then he's teaching my kids how to climb also, which is nerve-wracking as a mother, right? But I know that because he's so curious about all of it, he's learning all the safety guidelines and doing it so carefully. And so I think that's good. He's showing my kids also that they should try something new and break out of their box. So I saw somebody that said that doesn't look OSHA approved. He is following the guidelines, and we always have someone there to watch when he's climbing. So we're doing the safety pieces as we can, right? And Cynthia says, I always told my students mistakes are the best learning opportunities. You learn more from your mistakes than you do your successes. That is correct, for sure. So I wanted to just, think through who could be your person or people that help you challenge yourself and break out of your box. It could be coworkers, it could be your family and friends, but it's really important to move that and try new things. So I have not tried the tree climbing challenge yet. I have a fear of heights, so I'm gonna be supportive from the ground on this one. But then number 8 is to learn in your area of strength. And Maxwell suggests reading 6 to 12 books a year in leadership or your field of expertise, which goes right along with not stopping when you achieve that destination disease. Maxwell cautions that it's easy to become jaded or unteachable if we stop learning, even in our own specialization, and the only constant is change. And I think we've seen that right now, right? That what we knew isn't necessarily what's going to help us get through this. We have to be adapting and learning and trying new techniques. And I think that things like this course have been really good for us to think through new opportunities and how we might apply that as we recover from this COVID situation. So one last question for some discussion before we wrap up, but besides taking this leadership course, because we know you're all learning something or improving in your areas of strength, what have you done in the last 6 months that's something new or a challenge that you try to do to keep expanding your knowledge and learning? Some comments?
Hopefully people are finding their keyboards.
There we go.
Someone's taking digital training. That's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
That's an example.
Planted a garden. Yep, never done that before. A lot of people we're doing that too, and there's loads of online classes. Guitar for beginners, that's fantastic. Sarah Havens working on learning to spin wool into yarn. All kinds of neat skills we're picking up here. Duties as a treasurer, and started a new online business. Online PD for me, wellness, technologically stretching. Yes, for sure, right? I think we're all taking that skill on right now too. We were talking about that and some of the challenges we've had with Zoom before. So learning more about native plants from weeding and how to teach virtually. Valerie, there's a great Facebook page called Wild Edibles of Missouri and all the things that you can eat that we normally think of as weeds. So just as a side note, that's a really interesting thing. I've learned a lot about there too. So actually making my bed every day launches me to focus. I like order, it affects my learning. Yes. Learning to get less stressed outside my comfort zone. That is for sure, right? That is a big part of why we don't sometimes stretch outside of the box and try new things, because it is stressful and hard. That's good. And yeah, ways that you can find techniques to help you, like the woman who mentioned making your bed to help her focus. Those are some great things to help us get ready to learn and step outside that box. And Once Upon a Weed Facebook page. Sorry, David, we got a little off track with our focus was about environmental today and thinking about teachability in an environmental context maybe. So I have to push myself. Great. I think that, this time right now with this pandemic and all of the ways that we're having to think through new opportunities, this is also something that's keeping us learning and trying new things, whether it's as a family or parenting or with our work. And so the situation itself, I think, is something that's helping us think about how we can be teachable and try new things. So thank you guys for participating today. And I hope some of these conversations will help us think through how to stay open to new opportunities and new learning and not have destination disease. So thank you for your time today. We have a few minutes left, David. I didn't know if you wanted to.
Sure. People may have some other comments they'd like to share with us, and we're happy to hear those. I know one of the things that I see in this area, some friends who are really afraid to even try new things because they have this fear of failure or fear that they're going to make a mistake. And so they're almost paralyzed by that. And that you cannot be prideful and teachable at the same time. And those are not compatible. So it really links teachability back to some of the very early things we talked about in the 21 qualities, both the curiosity and the courage and the character. Being prideful can really restrict your ability to be teachable.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I thought that too as I was reading the chapter and thinking through a lot of the words, mistakes. That was something that's come up in several of these sessions about learning from your mistakes, being willing to make mistakes. So you're right. That's what I liked about this book, is that it all ties together and the pieces build on each other.
Yes. There's actually a book called The Key to Everything, and that particular author makes the argument that it is teachability that is the most important quality. Maxwell has it in here at number 20, but some others will say that it's the linchpin for everything. And of course, we're in education, so I think we, by our very nature, are probably lifelong learners and want other people to be as well. Mm-hmm. But not everybody shares that approach. But this willingness to learn, it is so essential. You did a great job with the topic today and helping us get a grasp on how important that really is. Some great examples today, too.
Thank you.
Well, folks, we will wrap up our session here today. Thank you for being here and making this investment in yourself. And please join us on Friday for the final session on the topic of vision. Leaders need to be able to cast a vision, have a vision, share their vision. Dr. Adams will be presenting that for us. And you'll get a email today with a recap of today and some videos to watch in advance of our Friday session. And there's also a link on there for a survey. We'd love to have your feedback on this class and the impact it's made and what sort of learning you have taken from this. That's valuable for us to know. We need to hear back from you. So thank you again for joining us today.